A month or two ago, on this YouTube channel, I stated that I thought that Tottenham Hotspur would attain Champions League football for next season over Newcastle United. And I just want to first of all sincerely apologise to anyone I've offended with that statement. And I also want to hand over my ball knowledge licence because clearly I am not fit and ready to own one. And yeah, my God, was I fucking wrong, because Newcastle have absolutely obliterated, humiliated, penetrated, and any other word that ends in ated to Spurs today. I mean, 6-1 at St James's Park. What a performance from Newcastle, and quite the opposite from Spurs. And yeah, as bad as Spurs were, and most people will focus on how bad Spurs were because my God, were they fucking dreadful beyond belief. But I want to focus more on how good Newcastle were, because I think they were absolutely brilliant. So clinical. The most clinical I've ever seen a team come out the traps in my entire life watching football. 5-0 up inside 21 minutes. Do you understand how mental that maths is? The maths isn't really mathing. 5 goals in 21 minutes for Newcastle. Jacob Murphy, Joe Linton, Jacob Murphy again, and 2 goals then from Alexander Isak, which wrapped up the game after 20 minutes, as if it wasn't wrapped up already after the second goal from Joe Linton even. But yeah, I mean, Newcastle, and the thing is about the goals as well, they weren't even scrappy goals. They were all really well worked team goals. And the second goal, which is a great ball over the top from Fabian Schär to Joe Linton, who takes an exquisite touch. The third goal from Jacob Murphy, a very good strike. The fourth goal from Alexander Isak, what a ball from Joe Willock. I mean, the pass of the season by some way from Joe Willock. I mean, that is just, what a ball that was. And yet Newcastle, I mean, obviously fully deserved their win, 6-1. And to be honest, I know it was a tactical disaster class, if a tactical disaster class was a definition from Christian Stellini, to go with a back four when pretty much all season long, and for a long time now, Spurs have gone for a back three and, played a 3-4-3. And for some reason, against this Newcastle team who are so good at driving forward and so direct and energetic in all areas of the pitch, he decided to switch it up and put 4 men at the back, which obviously massively backfired, and on 22 minutes brought on Davinson Sanchez to shore it up, and ironically drew the game 1-1 after that one. So I think Stellini probably won't ever make that mistake again in his managerial career, however long it goes on for. But yeah, I mean, Newcastle just absolutely trounced Tottenham Hotspur. And I mean, Tottenham's defence, Lloris obviously went off injured at half-time. He had a bit of a stinker, even though there wasn't much he could do for many of the goals, to be fair. Pedro Porro had an absolute stinker. Perisic wasn't great. Eric Dyer and Christian Romero both had absolute stinkers of the highest order. And yeah, Spurs overall, to be fair, other than really Harry Kane, and you can see a little bit of effort from Oliver Skipp, but other than that, I mean, Spurs, they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. And I know it gets branded about a lot, but if there was ever a game for a football club to refund their fan base, it's this one here, because what, a 7-hour journey up north for the Spurs fans, only to be 5-0 down within the first 20 minutes from a pathetic and spineless performance from this Spurs team. Like I said, I mean, the Spurs players should really be walking home, and yet the Spurs fans should be refunded for the dross they just witnessed overall. 3.64 expected goals for Newcastle compared to 1.01 for Spurs. 57% of the ball Newcastle had, creating 6 big chances, and Spurs obviously creating 1 with Harry Kane, who obviously scored it. And like I said, Newcastle, I just want to praise them because they were absolutely unbelievable from the first minute to the last minute. And to be honest, I think 6-1, arguably you say, actually flattered Spurs to a certain extent, because Newcastle, even besides those 6 goals, had a lot of chances and really could have made it 7 or 8. And with the way things were going, the fact they were 5-0 up inside 21 minutes, it could have very easily been even the first game that we've ever seen a team score double figures in the game before. It was that bad for Spurs, and I actually maintain that if Davinson Sanchez didn't come on and make it a back 5 for Spurs, that Newcastle really could have hit them for 8 or 9 absolute minimum. I mean, it was that bad, Spurs defensively, and Newcastle absolutely punished them to the highest degree, of course. And you just know, right, Antonio Conte, he's just sitting there, his feet up, on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean with his wife, just sipping on martini and, smoking a cigar and just loving life with those sunglasses firmly on his eyes. And yeah, he's just absolutely laughing in hysterics at what's going on at Spurs right now. I mean, I think it just goes to show he wasn't wrong. And don't get me wrong, I don't think he was in the right necessarily for coming out and just completely exposing it, because obviously he was still in charge of Spurs at the time when he said it. But I think in hindsight, you're looking at that interview, that outburst after the 3-3 draw at St Mary's at the time, and thinking there wasn't much wrong he said, to be honest. I mean, in terms of the fact that this Spurs team is spineless, has no fight, don't like playing under pressure, which I think was clearly showed today given the fact they were put under pressure from the first whistle, and then, you know, the pressure that comes with being 1-0 down, 2-0 down, 3-0 down so early. They absolutely crumbled, and yeah, just in Spurs fashion really, isn't it? And I think Antonio Conte absolutely summed up Spurs' current situation in terms of their mentality of the squad and the mentality of the club overall, to be fair, absolutely down to the ground. And yeah, in terms of Newcastle, like I said, a really good performance from them. Just to pinpoint a few individuals, I think there's one player that will go under the radar for how good he played. I think Fabian Schär was a really important player to this Newcastle team, and obviously unfortunately for him came off injured, and hopefully for Newcastle fans' sake and his sake personally, he isn't out for long. I think the second goal really shows how underrated Fabian Schär is, and on this channel a few weeks ago or a few months ago I did a video where I basically picked a team of 11 players that I thought were the most underrated players in the Premier League. I put Fabian Schär at centre back, and I stand by my decision because his passing range for a centre back is not bad at all, is it? And it shows for that second goal, and I think his ability in possession is vitally important for Newcastle's build-up play, and I think he perfectly showed that today. Jacob Murphy, who, you know, was kind of in the woodwork for a long time, and all of a sudden Eddie Howe has just miraculously pulled him from the wilderness and got him playing like prime Lionel Messi in right wing, to be honest. And what a strike for the second goal. His anticipation for the first goal as well can't be underestimated, and yeah, playing really well, working his socks off the ball for this Newcastle team as well. And Eddie Howe just working absolute miracles with this Newcastle team, because make no bones about it, Jacob Murphy is not by any stretch of the imagination the first player that he has resurrected in his time as Newcastle manager. You think of Joe Linton, who I thought was absolutely ridiculous today overall. You think of Sean Longstaff, who's so crucial in the press for Newcastle. You think of players like Miguel Almiron, obviously, who is probably the most notable one. And yet Eddie Howe's coaching in terms of improving players and finding a style of play in Newcastle that has been so direct, so energetic, and I mean, yeah, he's reaping the benefits of it well and truly. If you look at the table, Newcastle are, in my opinion, fairly much home and hosed for Champions League qualification this season. 31 games played, 7 games to go, 59 points to their name, putting that 3-0 loss to Aston Villa at Villa Park behind them last weekend. Spurs in 5th, 6 points behind Newcastle, but Newcastle do have a game in hand. So yeah, I think Newcastle, and probably Man United as well, are looking likely that they're home and hosed now for Champions League qualification, and Newcastle fans can be checking to see if their passports are in date, and they will be going on some European adventures next season, and deservedly so for the season they're having, because Eddie Howe has done an absolutely wonderful job there at Newcastle, and yeah, currently 3rd in the Premier League, and that's where I think they will finish. I think they will finish in 3rd above Manchester United, especially given the injury issues that United have, especially defensively there. But yeah, back to pinpointing players for Newcastle, and the one player I want to pinpoint now as well. I keep pinpointing every single game Newcastle play. This guy is absolutely ridiculous. Alexander Isak, 2 goals from today, and yeah, just a wonderful striker. I've said it time and time again. I'm basically a broken record talking about this fella now, in terms of he's the complete modern day striker, in terms of the fact that first of all he's able to find the back of the net, which certainly isn't a bad thing. His link up play, his ability to drop deep and get into build up play, his pressing from the front, he's creative, he's got ability to play with his back to goal, he's quick, he's got physical presence. I just think he's absolutely everything. He's the benchmark for what you want in a modern day striker right now, and no doubt he will be the kingpin in this Newcastle team, with the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, etc., that will drive Newcastle to probably their first Premier League title within the next decade. And yeah, Alexander Isak, what a signing he's been, and as a Chelsea fan, I'm so jealous, because I would have really loved if we'd gone for Alexander Isak. But yeah, in summary, Newcastle absolutely outstanding. Spurs quite the opposite, absolutely pathetic and spineless are the main 2 words I would use to sum up their performance. It looks like now that that is the decider in the top 4 race, and to be honest, I think if Spurs wanted any chance of qualifying for the Champions League, they needed to reverse this result and beat Newcastle today, which obviously would have been a difficult achievement, evident after the 6-1 loss. But yeah, I think the top 4 race now is pretty much done, barring any astronomical twists in the final weeks of the season, and Newcastle will be there and Spurs will not be there. And yeah, leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, especially Newcastle fans. Help a brother out and help me get to 3,000 subscribers on this channel as soon as we possibly can. So every single one of you that hits that big fat juicy succulent subscribe button, you be an absolute king and help me get there as soon as possible. And hit that notification bell while you're at it as well, because yeah, you won't miss any one of these absolutely brilliant videos. But yeah, that's all for today. Fair play Newcastle, brilliant performance from them, and yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video, and yeah, chat to you later.